Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name is Andy Elliott. I'm a realtor here in Williamson County, Tennessee. I'm with my best bud, Rodney Wilds, who's a loan officer also in Williamson County, Tennessee. And we are here with our friend Ange, all the way out from California. Just wanted to say, how you doing, girl? Hi, Rodney.
How's it going?
It's going, putting out fires. You know, when you're in the battle, just the smoke of battle coming off you. That's me.
Nice.
That's
hey, at least our weather in Tennessee. I got to give a shout out to our weather right now. It's high 70s, low humidity. It is fantastic.
I am digging it. I mean, this is where, because I'm getting old, I can go outside and take a nice nap. You know, I like that stuff.
Yeah. It's been hot.
So, I guess the Trump and the Fed, they're sort of on the outs. Are they having a fight? I said Feds.
No.
If Phil's on here, if Wendy's on here,
yeah.
I didn't mean Feds. I meant the Fed.
Yeah.
But
I've always got your back. You know, Tupac referred to it as the Feds. So.
Okay.
He was a social icon, so you can do that if you'd like.
Yeah. Angie, I bet they are. They're on our friend is got folks that are, we'll say, but they're rafting in a pretty popular area around here, and seems to be the weather is fine. And she's kicking it right off with a question, but we're going to get to that in a minute. First things first, I want to start with the topic that we're going today. If you notice on the thumbnail, was this.
You all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
I just had to do that. The first thing, and we're going to cover that, and that's actually a Rodney question about capital gains. I was reading quite a bit about that. Trump is talking about eliminating that, I think, is the conversation that's in the conversation. And I won't go on. I'll ask Rodney about that in a minute. But the topic today is, at least generally to start with, is there's a new bill that's been proffered. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I'm sorry. I bet he got wet. That's been going on is finally that Congress is paying a little bit of attention to housing. Now, how does that happen? I'm sure that there's probably votes involved, and maybe National Association of Realtors. They've got some pretty heavy dollars that flow in there, and you talk about, what do they call that? When you have people in there kind of pushing people around. I can't think of the word. What's the word, Rodney? When you pay somebody to convince somebody to go your way. There's a word for it, and I've completely lost
it. The not supporters, but you're talking about what they do on Capitol Hill and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, the word will come to us in about a minute. You'll see. Yeah. It'll pop up. Lobbyists.
Yes. I couldn't get influencer out of my head. I'm like, influencer. But yeah.
It's been a great show. Have a good day. All right. So, yeah. But what I wanted to start with, and one of them is not. She's just not my favorite congressperson. I don't know that, but I don't want to be judgy because that's the way it would come off. And the other person, it's a bill that's been worked on by both sides of the House. So that's a good thing. At any rate, let me read through this and let's comment a little bit on what the government is trying to do to improve housing. That's the whole, I guess I could have said that in one sentence and shut up. A Senate, wait, 2 shares, 2 pips and a share. Good. A Senate committee approved a major housing bill this week with a range of provisions that could make it easier for people to buy a home. That's good news. On Tuesday, the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs unanimously voted to advance the Renewing Opportunity in the American Dream to Housing Act of 2025, which aims to increase the supply of affordable housing. I'm behind that. The bill, sponsored by Tim Scott, seems like a decent guy, chairman of the committee, and Elizabeth Warren, who I'm just going to, if you can't say something nice, shut up, me. A ranking member, is the first bipartisan markup for housing in over a decade. Do you want to interject any thoughts on that?
No, I'll keep going. Yeah.
Okay. The bill has been released to the Senate floor, but it has not yet been scheduled for debate. Now I'm going to be listening to that one. Here's what renters and homebuyers need to know about the bill. According to the text, the Road to Housing Act of 2025 aims to boost the country's housing supply, improve affordability, help reduce homelessness, expand access to home ownership, increase oversight and efficiency. I'd like to see that happen both at the same time, of federal regulations and housing programs. The housing market has been increasingly unaffordable for many Americans. The median sale price in June was $435,000, a record high for the month. According to the National Association of Realtors, interest rates have also remained elevated, but that's not the story today, right? They dropped it was significant, didn't they? Yesterday, today? Okay, we'll get to that. Keeping sellers from listing their homes and potential buyers on the sidelines. Many households aren't even, I thought this was an interesting comment, because this is a bigger picture thing. Many households aren't even forming because they can't afford to own or even rent. this guy from Moody's. And I thought, that's a bigger picture that I don't perhaps think about often enough. I mean, I think people forget what realtors are supposed to, what our job, what we're supposed to do. And if somebody didn't know this, it's not just to sell houses. It's about the land, and it's helping the land be used to its highest and best use. That's actually the mandate for realtors. And so it's kind of a bigger picture. Have you ever heard of that, Rodney? Did you know that?
I haven't heard that. No.
Yeah, that's our mandate. When you go to school and stuff, I mean, the job of a realtor is to create value, frankly, sometimes where there was none. That's why places like East Bank and Nashville and stuff, that stuff happens, is because it's this highest and best use anyway. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Households aren't even forming because they can't afford to own or rent. I mean, that's what it's all about. Housing isn't about selling four walls and a roof. It's about housing families and grown families and people being happy and healthy and that kind of thing. Bullying. Uh-oh. Who? Is that me? Am I being bullying? I don't know. Help me out, Rodney. Hand says bullying. I don't know. Am I being mean?
No,
While industry groups and local officials have expressed support for the housing package, it's not a panacea. I think that's reasonable. And we're going to go into the specific stuff that it's going to address in a moment, but I just wanted to get through this first. What's more, the bulk of the provisions are aimed at making the process of building more housing easier for local governments, changes that could eventually add more supply and ease prices. Still, some provisions in the bill directly impact individuals and communities. It's a series of measures, some of which are bold, some of which are modest, some of which will be helpful, some of which may be harmful. The hope is that overall it's a significant step forward. Isn't that always the case? It's a mixture of good and bad, especially when it comes to the government, because they're trying to cover all the bases at once, which you really can't do. Just a couple more thoughts. Do you have anything to interject just yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. A provision in the housing package would simplify now get this, and you tell me how much impact this is going to have. A provision in the housing package, no, but that was lobbying, got it. Bullying, got it. Same difference. The provision, yes. Thanks for helping me. I can be insecure, Ange. A provision in the housing package would simplify the construction of manufactured housing by eliminating the federal requirement of permanent chassis or foundation and expanding lending and financing options. Isn't that the old joke about selling a manufactured house? Are the radials still good? That's the joke, isn't that right? But formerly known as mobile homes, manufactured house, which is fine. I'm not laughing at him, but the radio joke is what I was laughing about. Formerly known as mobile homes, manufactured housing consists of factory-built homes that are transported into one or more sections. As of now, it must be installed into permanent chassis. Sounds like a car to me. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, such homes are more affordable to make and sell and are popular in the South, where housing shortages are particularly acute. With a few changes in lending and regulation, we might see more manufactured housing that could be very, very helpful for improving home ownership. For example, we're not going to do that one. When people have mortgages backed by, this is kind of jumps. When people have mortgages backed by the government, if they need a payment reduction in their mortgage, one of the ways they do that is by extending the term of the loan. So it's talking about two different things. Clearly, they're talking about ways to make things more affordable by extending loans, but they're also talking about manufactured homes. Do you guys even do manufactured homes?
No. Well, yes, I think we do. I think they do. I think we do them. But we never would do one without a permanent foundation. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of, one, what do they control? They always, Elizabeth Warren tried this, as soon as they lost the election, she come out with that you remember that housing thing that she come out with? I mean, I don't even remember what it was. It was that significant. She was using some of the COVID payback money she's trying to get trying to collect it. They didn't even have it. They was trying to collect some of the COVID money that people owed them, and they were going to use that for housing.
I'm going to claw it back or something.
You seen it was so little it wouldn't affect one neighborhood in the whole country. But I like anything, but when they're trying to, they got 4 or 5 things in there, that they're trying to attack: homelessness, affordability. It's, and while all the mention that, the Fed Reserve person that Elizabeth Warren is supposed to work with, he hasn't lowered rates in, months, and supposed to be, projected 6 times this year. The economy's not doing great. I mean, the economy, it's actually, I think they missed a boat on lowering the rates. I think the economy's already taken a hit to where, we'll wait and see how it plays out, but things have slowed so much that, I don't know, the rates now, I'm not sure what they could do for us, but.
Well, and look at the jobs report. I mean, isn't that part of their mandate for the Fed is to protect jobs? I mean, isn't that right?
I think they want to see significant job loss. I think they, I think they want job loss. To
show where the bottom is. Is that what you think? That's
I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do. It's like they missed the boat on the rate situation. But to me, this is just another Elizabeth. And I hate picking on Miss Warren, but it's like housing is it's too big to control. I think, how can they have affordability is the issue. Home prices are the issue, and high rates. Rates will eventually take care of themselves. But, they're saying, no, Elizabeth Warren was the one that killed banking relations. You know what I'm saying? She put so much paperwork and stuff into banking that killed it. And now that she's in the government, it's like, well, what is the government trying to do to fix it? I don't know if they can fix it, because it's, how can the best thing I think they could do is ease up on financing and builders getting money, but not regulations on who's buying it, because I think we're at a really good spot to where people who buy homes now are qualified. So that's why you're not seeing the zillions of foreclosures when our industry has slowed down. I think the proof's in the pudding there is that people are sitting on a lot of equity, and a lot of people are still making that payment because lending as a whole, from some of those changes that Elizabeth Warren did. I don't want, she was a big proponent of the Dodd-Frank Act, and some of that stuff really helped get the mortgage business in line where, the Wall Street couldn't just put out a product for us and we sell it, and they put it in mortgage-backed securities, even though it didn't have income requirements, So,
and I want to touch on that. I think I sent you a link that has those legislative things. Hopefully we can visit that, because that's your strength, not mine. But here's what I wanted to do: is I wanted to touch base to continue on this because this is interesting. At the very least, at least it's in the conversation, but we get to scrutinize, because we're involved with this, what it is that they're trying to do, at least at first blush, because this is just that first draft and they haven't even debated it and that kind of stuff. And so I understand that these are broad brush topics. I get that. but I wanted to go through some of the things that they're talking about and see what our opinions are on what does it mean? Can it be done? Can it even be done? I mean, and how would you do that? Isn't that the bigger question? Wouldn't it be wonderful? I mean, here's a good one, and we'll get to it in a second, is like homelessness. Everybody wants to take care of homelessness in one way or another. But how do you do that? How do you do that in such a way as the trick is for people that are struggling with homelessness that they can work their way out of that? That's, I think, not only the goal, but that's how you stop it, ultimately is help people work their way out of it. I don't know. I'm an idiot. But let's go through some of this stuff. Remove regulatory barriers to housing development. Couldn't agree more. Did you see that article? And it was behind a paywall, and I don't share stuff that is behind a paywall with you because it's just a hassle. But it was talking about how they could get more houses and more housing in the country for odd-shaped, crescent-shaped, triangular-shaped, weird-shaped lots in cities, because now they kind of don't get used. If you go into a development, if you look at the big picture on how the lots are laid out, if there's an odd piece of lot, they just plaster it onto another house and it's unusable anyway. And so that particular house lot is 0.35 instead of 0.22, and everybody else is 2.2 through the whole neighborhood. But I thought that was, what an interesting thing. Crescent shapes, triangular shapes, odd shaped lots could improve things because there's a lot of that, I guess. I thought there's thinking outside the box. I thought that was pretty good. And it says here to increase and preserve existing housing. The increase I get, the preserve, I mean, does that even need to be said? I don't know about that. It seems obvious to me.
Right.
It seems. Promote innovative construction methods, including to expand access to modular manufactured home housing. In terms of all the housing, the pent-up demand, I'm asking you, this is merely a guess. We've talked about pent-up demand, that there's a lot of it. And with the bottleneck currently is the mortgage rates. Of the pent-up demand, how much do you think, and this is not judging, I'm just asking, modular and manufactured home, how much do you think that would satisfy of the pent-up demand? Yes.
It wouldn't range any more than it is right now, which I wouldn't think it's more than 1% to 2%.
1% to 2%. And you do. There's a chick, her name is Christina Smallhorn, just a wonderful creator, YouTuber. And that she lives in the South, and she made she's got hundreds of thousands of followers and did it all with mobile homes. I mean, it's popular. And with this, and it seems to be growing here lately in the last couple of years, because as it becomes more and more difficult to buy a regular, call it single family dwelling, people are trying to form their homes, right? They're still trying to do that. And if the only way left possible is to do that is manufactured home, which, by the way, some of them are quite nice. We're not just talking about single wides here. Manufactured homes are different, and they're better, and they're okay-ish. It depends. But at any rate, I've lost my train of thought, which is a perfect time to move on to the next thing. Address neighborhood blight and support communities recovering from natural disasters. Katrina? Still working on trying to fix that 20 years later, I think, something like that. That's a tough one. What do you have any thoughts on that? I'm putting you on the spot. I'm putting Rodney on the spot a lot today.
Oh, well, I don't know if Katrina's a good example, but because I look at Katrina like the pre and post aftermath of Katrina.
That's true.
And the pre was all about that, they weren't spending the money on these levees and bridges because there was was too much corruption. And in post, I just think if you had a city with great leadership and strong people that that you wouldn't be building back 20 years. That would already happened. Like
Yeah.
if that would have happened to downtown Broadway, Nashville, I wouldn't think we'd be talking about it 15 or 20 years later about it not being rebuilt.
I did see an interview though that where not to pound on this, but there are still sections down there that are still that hadn't been touched since then. I think more of the blight, and this sounds so unkind, but here it is. The places that come to mind really are kind of like a Baltimore and Detroit, where there things have degraded. I mean, there's just a lot of issues there, and
Yeah.
I don't know the reasons. I'm not assigning blame here. I'm just saying that's where those things have happened, and what this bill is trying to do is address that. That's a heavy lift. I think it's aspirational. I mean, that would be wonderful if it could happen, but man, talk about, I don't know. Would it be prohibitively expensive? I don't know. The biggest expense would be to get rid of the stuff that's kind of worn down, that sort of thing. Here's a good. I'm going to pop this up. I'm always amazed in the U.S. Apartment condos aren't built higher like in Europe, same amount of space, but way more housing. That is exactly what I think needs to be addressed in terms of the regulations. Because what people keep talking about, all of us, including me, and I'm guilty of this too, we need to build more houses. And in an article we've got coming up, guy said, well, I won't, he's from Zillow, and he said, if the builders would have just kept building back in the day, we wouldn't have the housing crisis that we have today. That's kind of a stupid thing.
With nobody buying them, with banks cutting them off, suing them because they couldn't make their payments on foreclosing on the inventory that wasn't, being sold. I mean, of course, that's the greatest look back 2020 view you could ever do. It's like, give me a break. Banks were dying and they were trying to get their money back. And builders were struggling. They weren't selling anything. They had too many properties out. The developers were going busted. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great just to say, oh, yeah, we should have kept it. Well, if the government could have stepped in and said, these 10,000 builders, we're going to waive your interest. I mean, builders can't build when they're not selling. Like you can't carry interest on billion or, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of property without income coming in. I mean, that's nonsense.
It is nonsense. And I can tell that touched a nerve there with you, Rodney.
I mean, it's this whole article does, because Elizabeth Warren spends her whole career on making banking regulations difficult, and taking money and trying to give it to somebody who don't need it. And then she's always messing with housing, but she never accomplishes anything. It's like she comes up with these crazy ideas. It's not going to help two people in the whole country. And I don't mean to be this way, but I just don't know what the government can do when housing is having an affordability issue. I mean, it is what it is. Like, it's I seen this crazy thing on YouTube the other day. A lady was complaining about she couldn't afford, and I get it. Like, rent went from like $1,500 to $3,000 over several years. And I'm like, you don't have to live in Miami. Like, you don't have to live in the city of Miami. Like, if rent's gotten too, and you haven't worked and whatever the deal is, you're not making that much, you need to move out of the city somewhere where you can afford. So it's like, nobody has any common sense. It's like, well, I just can't pay rent. Well, I mean, not everybody needs to live in the city of Miami. It's like, when I first bought my house, I knew I had to go out and buy. It's not in an area where my parents grew up, or what I'm saying is, like, I had to get to where I could afford, and then and then you just live where you can get in where you fit in. I don't know how to say it, but it's like
That's perfect.
it's
That's
like
perfect.
I don't think I should live in Manhattan, or I don't think I should live in off of Rodeo Boulevard in California, where it's 25 million an acre. I don't have that kind of money, so I don't get to be there. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to live in Tennessee where I can afford it. But that's me.
It
That's
reminds
my
me
pre-riff.
that was brilliant. I loved it. Where's my? I've got a thing. I've got a celebration button someplace around here. I don't know where it is. I couldn't agree more. And I'm telling this is the complaints that I hear these days are from the people that were born after 2000, and I love them. They're great, but that's where most of the complaints are coming from, and it seems to me. And there's some entitlement going on that there's going to be some lessons learned for a lot of younger folks that is probably going to be a little harsher than they expect. Just like
Yeah,
what you said, if you can't
it,
afford to live in Miami, go someplace else.
yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's I've said this a million times, but when I first started in the business, and I hate to be the old guy talking about this, it was rare that somebody had a crazy high car payment,
Oh,
and most of us didn't have those car payments because it was like, I don't want to afford a $400 or $500 payment back. Now they're $800 or $900, which is even more crazier. But it's like everybody comes in and is, you know, struggling with affordability, but yet they've got a 700 car note, and 12 subscriptions. And that's just the way our world is now. It's like you think you have to drive a nice car, or there's just not enough humbleness or whatever to drive a POS, for a while or whatever it is to get yourself financially in a better spot.
yeah. What does Dave Ramsey say? Live like nobody else for now, so you can live like nobody else later. And what he means is, if you have to eat beans and stuff for a while, then do that. And I don't agree with everything he says. He can be pretty harsh, but from a
Yeah,
principle
I don't either. But if somebody follows 75 or 50% of what he says, they're usually better off. Uh,
yeah,
Unlike Miss Warren, she don't. I don't like her advice, but Dave Ramsey has some stuff. Like where I disagree with him is like when I've helped a single parent or somebody plant their flag, as we call it, and buy a home with 3.5% down, which he is vehemently against. He thinks you need to save up 20% and put it on a 15-year term or whatever.
right.
Um, but I think planting your flag is more important than saving up for 20%. Now I know he can show a million reasons why, but I could also show you a bunch of families that's been better off with a house than I get what he's saying on paper.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's reality wise is that I'd rather see a family get in a nice little house with a fence instead of an apartment somewhere and plant their flag. So in 4 or 5 years, they can move up and be a significant, buy maybe closer to their dream home.
And you could line up the millions of people that did that in the past 6 years, and let's talk about equity now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
And typically they've always come out really good. We've had a couple crashes in our lifetime, but
they're pretty
typically,
great.
but still, if you're say if you're a parent and whatever, you just bought that house we're discussing, it's better than rent, in my opinion. It's better than but people value walking away from something, which is not my big value. Like if I rented something, I'm going to pay them till my contract is up. So I'm really not walking away from anything. Um, but I guess when your rent's done, you can just walk away and you don't have maintenance fees. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I digress.
No, no, that was man. This is good stuff. I just love it to death. Just a couple of things, and we'll move on to Rodney's riff. But but I wanted to be sure to include that. And the reason that I'm talking about this is it says improve housing affordability, expand access to home ownership. How are you going to do that? I mean, that's my question. That's aspirational, and I think that's probably all it is. But when it comes down to how do you actually pull that off, I don't know. Improve housing affordability. What? Okay, all right. Let's do that. Promote housing opportunities for veterans. They got a pretty good deal with the, I mean, VA does pretty good, wouldn't you say? Isn't that?
Yeah. See, I think that, like, let's say they, this was 100% focused on homelessness and veterans. I think they'd have a lot better opportunity to make a dent there, because each city could do something with homelessness, right? And that doesn't have anything to do, because when you start talking about real estate, you're talking about now you need the builder, or the developer, the builder, and then the seller, and then the buyer, everybody to be able to get this same grant or whatever the government's trying to do. And that's just impossible. Like, they can affect regulations, but homelessness and something for veterans. Like if they had a veteran park, they took some government money and made a veteran park where I seen they were building houses out of these shipping containers, and just giving them a place off the street would be pretty awesome. They could do stuff like that, but I don't see them really affecting the affordability crisis that we have today, which is most houses are just too expensive for a first-time home buyer. I mean,
it is, and that's just a matter. That's capitalism at work. Sorry, that's what it is.
Wages haven't increased as home prices increased. And it's not builders not building during during a crisis when nothing was selling. I mean, that's not the fault of it. Everybody always blames builders for not building, but trust me, if a builder knew that house was selling, they'd build them. You'd have 100 of them building.
Rinse and
in
repeat.
One spot. Yeah,
rinse and repeat. I mean, people think that there's all these huge builders. There's Pulte and there's DR and there's companies like that, but the majority of home builders of new homes are being built by these mom and pop. Smaller. They're not
smaller. Yeah.
I mean,
smaller
and
companies.
that's their livelihood. When they're sitting on spec homes for 100 days, that's a painful proposition for these guys. So that guy from Zillow can go someplace else. But anyway, to continue, just a couple of others, and we'll move on. I thought this one was interesting. This illustrates to me, at least I think, is that they don't know what they're talking about. It says reduce appraisal shortages while addressing inaccurate appraisals. What? Okay, all right. I don't know. Okay, let's fix that. Let's spend a lot of time on that.
I mean, and let me tell you, Fannie Mae, speaking of appraisals, Fannie Mae and Fannie Mae has so much data. Years ago, I don't know if 7 or 10, whatever it was, but it was several years ago. Every appraisal that takes place on a Fannie Mae loan is entered into a system where they dissect the information. And that's how it's how they derive whether you get what's called a property inspection waiver, because you could come in and get a loan, say you're putting 10 or 20% down, and if you're paying the amount that Fannie Mae thinks you're paying correctly for it, they'll give you what's called an appraisal waiver. And that's just saying that we agree with the value. There's no, Fannie Mae has seen this house you're buying as a comp, as a sale, seen it several times and understand it in and out. And that's why they're able to make those decisions. But they have so much data on each property that it's crazy good for them to have that data.
And we're getting pretty close to where the appraisal waivers, they're becoming more and more common, are they not? With existing homes?
I think so. I think they've always been pretty common, but with technology, the way everything's going with technology, we have definitely seen over the years an increase in those. Yeah. We're always going to need an appraiser. Like appraisers are worried that, oh, will this take over? This has been around for a minute now, and I don't see them being replaced. I do see, some of the volume going away, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, you got to keep humans involved. I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
That's what keeps the market from going just nuts, But here, just a couple of others, and we'll let this go. This has been really good, and I'm not bashing the idea, but I guess I'm trying to. For me, I'm not getting my hopes up too much. That they've got this thing that hasn't been debated. Like the next one, I about threw my computer out the window, and I love my computers. And the next one says, "Ensure taxpayer dollars are used efficiently." What? That's a great idea, Let's do that. As we're fighting Doge.
Some people need to be reminded that, though. I mean, this was a bipartisan bill, so that must have been the Republican that put that in there.
I would think so.
For all the Republicans on the channel here, that was for you.
And then the last one, it's because this is the last one. I just thought this was so ironic. Strengthen oversight of housing regulators. That just sounds like double down on more regulations. That's what it sounds like to me. We're going to have more. God, help me.
Yeah,
now.
See, that's typically what that Elizabeth Warren does is love regulations. So
she does. And we're going to do, I can't remember what we discussed before, Rodney. Was it the plastered purchase price? Yes, got it.
Yes.
Hang on. Come on. Thank you. Rodney's
all right. Give me 1 second here. I thought I had my article pulled up, but it's not here for some reason. Sorry, I pull up my email here. Hey, do you want to use your that thing you've been wanting to use? That will be right back while I find that.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I've been dying to use that.
Yeah, I just wanted you to have. I was slow walk this, so you could do that. Let's see here. Open with Google. All right. Appraisal came in much lower than plastered purchase price. We're not sure what plastered purchase price, but we're just going to assume that is a adjective describing a purchase price. Agreed purchase price was $436,000. The appraisal just came in at $390,000. When putting together the loan for $436,000, the seller included a $60,000 flex cash, which I used to buy down the price of the home. Am I correct to assume that I can now negotiate the price down because of the low appraisal and still use the $60K offered to buy down the price further? Appreciate any advice. Thanks. All right. Wow, that's something. 60,000 flex cash, which I have never heard of what's considered flex cash. I've also not seen, it be well more than 10% of the purchase price. So there's something very odd going on in this situation. Now, I did read through the comments, and before we get started, I want to make sure everybody, this is a builder, okay? It's talked about later, like, it's got to be a builder, the deuceable or deuce-B, or how do you say that? D-U-C-B-U-I?
Oh, yeah.
That
Duck Boy.
Duck Boy is he's got a weird situation with this one. So I would be extremely cautious. Now, to answer your question, am I correct to assume that I can negotiate the price down because of the low appraisal and still use the $60K offer to buy down the price further? You've got an and there. Let me answer the first part. You definitely can. Contracts have, and I'm just going to assume it's a normal contract. Contracts have an appraisal contingency in there. If it doesn't appraise, you get to renegotiate. Now, and still use the $60K offer to buy down the price further. That's a whole different question, because once you start renegotiating, you no longer, in my opinion, your old price and all that is just a starting point. Like, you don't have the 60 anymore. You really don't even have the 390 anymore, in my opinion, once you start renegotiation. And Andy's better with that than me. But when I feel like you start renegotiation, everything is on the table.
Mm-hmm.
However, they gave you the 60,000 obviously because they knew it wasn't going to appraise, for 436 or whatever you were putting down it. So first, yes, you can always renegotiate. Two, if the appraisal come in low and you had it, obviously it's in your contract, but using the 60Ks, who knows what's going to happen? You're basically into a whole nother deal. But in this situation, I'll tell you what happens when we have an appraisal come in low in a normal situation. And let's assume a builder's not given $60,000. Okay, just a normal contract, $5,000, no money, $10,000, something like that. 99 out of 100 times, the deal gets worked out. And it usually gets worked out. It's always gets worked out generally in the buyer's favor, meaning the seller, after it calms down and the listing agent has sent you 12 comps that are in a different city and across 4 interstates and everything else, and saying, well, these houses are the comps I used. Yeah, I think everybody realizes an independent person has gone out there and assessed the value of that house, and cooler heads prevail on this. Like I said, 99 out of 100 times. And the sellers end up, so if they were giving away, say, 20,000 or 10,000 closing costs, they may come down to that purchase price and only give 2,000 or none, depending on how much they had to come down there. But when I seen this article, I was like, man, the real point I want to make in this article is that sellers and buyers generally always work this out, because it's somebody that's doesn't work for us. They don't work for the real estate agent. They don't work for the seller. We basically had an independent person come in and tell us what this was worth, and typically cooler heads prevail and a deal gets worked out. Now on this one here, 60,000 is getting worked out. So I have no clue. It looks like to me, if I was a seller, it'd be like, well, you're buying, on this one at 436. So that would be 376.
Right.
With the 60,000. So they're almost selling it at full price, right? So he's got it a little under what the appraised value come in. So, there the guy's coming out pretty good. It's still with the 60,000, but how the builder got there I don't know, Andy. You would wreck people's nerves. Buying it for 436, giving them 60, and then it comes in for 390, and then they'll feel like, well, I didn't get my 60. Well, you wasn't getting the 60 anyways. We knew you wasn't getting 60. Like, that should have been stated up front. But my advice would be absolutely go back and try to negotiate, but I don't know if you're going to get 10 cents because they knew this ahead of time, in my opinion. Like, the seller knew that they probably knew the dollar it was going to come in at, and the 60,000 is, I don't know how they're going to get away with it, but we'll see, because you're going to have that appraisal gap and all that now. But anyways, the answer to your question is absolutely you need to renegotiate because the deal has changed. When you signed that contract, you were expecting the appraisal to come in at 436, and it did not. So now, if it came in at 430, I wouldn't say a word because you were getting 60 then.
Yeah.
But so let's jump into the comments. We had some good comments in here and see what they had to say here. The very first one, less suit come in. You can negotiate whatever you want, but the seller may not want to lower the price and still offer $6K in flex cash. He said, what's the actual mortgage amount? Was $373. It's going to be a lot lower now because they're working off $390 instead of $436. Odd Seesaw said you can try to negotiate anything, but it's unlikely the seller's going to agree to lose another $60K. Adam 574, what is $60,000 flex cash from the seller? Never heard of it, and am curious. No Heat also said same. Hey, No Heat, Adam 574. I've never heard of 60,000 flex cash. So we're in the same boat together. Here's somebody figuring out it's a builder instead of a seller. That was a pretty easy guess. I kind of thought that right off the bat. So that's what comment from Slow Molasses 1. Slow Hand 1971 says seller isn't going to allow that. I typically agree. Yeah, here you go. They already knew the house wouldn't appraise, hence that big old allowance. Hot Secretary 7352. I wish we had pictures here, but you can try, but the seller's already bleeding, so I don't know if it'll work. But the worst he can say is no. Right. I don't know if they're really bleeding. I don't know if Hot Secretary understands that they just built in that, they sold that for $1 million and they're going to give you $900,000, it's really $100,000. Here's a good question. Is your contract contingent upon appraisal? The Shell 2000, the sellers don't have to take a lower price. They don't. But they're going to sell it again, and just keep in mind that when that appraisal, they're going to have to get another appraisal. And when they get another appraisal and the same appraiser comes in or a different appraiser comes in with the same amount, because the comps are going to be the same, it's going to be very close. They'll have to renegotiate. Chroma Studio. The seller already gave you $60K, so effectively your purchase price is way lower than appraised value. Not way lower. You didn't do the math. It was only a few thousand after that $60K. I'd never pay above appraised value. That is the starting point of negotiation. Way fast. I hear you, brother. I'm with that person unless I do it on my own free will. I don't want to be tricked into it from the builder or an appraisal or whatever. The 7 nights till dawn says the banks want you to take the loss that they see coming.
What?
Your job is to make sure you never lose a dime. I can tell you what, I've worked for a couple different banks in my lifetime, and I'll tell you what a bank doesn't want to see is a customer losing money, especially if they're financing. I don't know where 7 nights is thinking here. If the person loses money we loan money to, that means we're going to lose money. I mean, if they go out and take a loan and can't pay the loan back, the bank loses money. So the bank would never want a person to take the loss that they see coming. So I don't know what that is. Even down with pencils, 60,000 flex cash, which I use to buy down the price of the home. I never heard of this. I'm assuming this isn't like closing cost credit. It is. It actually is like closing cost credit. except they're acting like you can say, I want to buy the house instead of 436, I want to buy it for 400, and you only give me 30,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
So there you go. The appraisal come in much lower than plastered purchase price. That's my riff. But the main thing I want you to come out of this is, your contracts protects you as a buyer, for what it's going to appraise for. And it's generally worked out. The appraisal is something that I typically do not worry about. And a lot of people put a lot of worry in that because it might come back low. It might come, is it going to come back, whatever. I don't really concern myself with it because the sellers and buyers always work it out. I want to just provide for me, I want to provide a third party evaluation of that. I want an accurate representation of that value for the buyer, even if it kills the deal. I mean, I want them to have the best. What do you call it? I just want them to know what the property's worth before they buy it. And an independent appraiser is the best way for us to try to figure that out.
There you go. Rodney's riff. Way to go.
That's the riff.
That's good stuff. That is good stuff. The only, I would like to add on one thought on that. Can I? Is that okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's Rodney's riff, but you can add it if you like.
Just a thought. No, never mind.
No, please add it. Please tell me what you say. I was teasing with you.
With the, it's a good idea if you're getting a builder's house, to have your own agent represent you. And I'm not trying to get inject myself in the middle of things, but appraisal contingencies can be waived. And if the builder is writing a contract for you, it might be wise to have somebody standing in the breach, just to make sure that kind of stuff is there. That was it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope this guy has an agent. I hope anybody who goes. I mean, in my opinion, you need somebody that represents you when you call the person on the sign that's already told the seller that they're going to get the most out of that house. Like how a listing agent gets a deal is by telling, by a lot of things, but bottom line is that seller feels comfortable that listing agent is going to get the most out of that house. That's their job, is to get the most out of anybody who comes in that door. Don't think you're going to get some money, saving some money because you don't have a realtor. That is dead and gone. And it may have never existed, honestly. It was but it was a bigger myth. It's even worse today is, I guess, back in the day, there could have been a builder or somebody that may have given you 10 cents because you didn't have a realtor. But today, you're going to get, well, like I said, it's totally possible, Andy, that this is probably written maybe just by the builder, because what realtor would fall for that with their client? You're going to get a 60,000 credit, to use any way you want.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't even get my head around flex cash. I can't. It's like, what?
I mean, that contract's going to have to be rewritten in my opinion, if it actually said the word flex cash. I mean,
it's who's going to underwrite that? What does this mean?
Yeah.
Condition.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Representation is very, very important. With any house, with any time you go to somebody, call that listing even if it's a builder, they represent the builder, they represent the seller. They don't represent you. So as a buyer,
and a little thing like that, and it seems little when you're going through a contract. You're going through, and we're going to waive appraisal. I'm sure it'll appraise. Okay, you just blow through it, and then all of a sudden, you've agreed to it. It's just a cautious word. I don't know that that was one of the best. What a great day, Rodney! You are on fire today. There's nothing else to add. I'm not bringing up anything There's no other article. There's nothing more important than what you just did. That was fabulous. And man, that's good stuff right there. And Angela had a thought on, but we're not going to, I'm going to just pop it up there for 2 seconds, and because I like her. So the buyer still gets 11 grand over appraisal. So what's the problem?
It wouldn't have been. See, that would be a good way to look at it if the person had an agent, like Andy was talking about, and the agent said, "Listen, when this appraisal comes back, that's when we're really going to negotiate this contract. Like we're going to see, they could actually say, a good agent should have said, listen, this house is not going to appraise for 436. Let's see what this appraisal comes back, because we still may be in the good with that 60. We still may be able to buy it at full price and get some closing costs paid. And so when that appraisal come in at 390 or whatever, they would have said, oh, you're right on, spot on with that. Like, now we can adjust the money this way or that way or whatever. So it could have saved a deal where now this guy's thinking, if he bought it for 436, thinking he's getting 60,000 and it's worth 436. Because I can guarantee you, if he was going through the listing agent, he wasn't going to tell him wasn't going to appraise for 436. They wrote the offer for 436. Yeah, just going to deal with it later or something. Who knows?
And this brings up one other point before we get out of here, and that is, years ago I had a listing with, he was a head of HP. Remember Hewlett Packard? I mean, are they still around? I think they are. But anyway, one of the executives, I was working with DeSalms back then, and it was there was the development right across from the Governor's Club over there off of Concord, and he was an HP executive, so he had a really nice house, and apparently the builder, and this is back, I can't remember what year it was, but this is back when builders were kind of doing what they're doing now. They're putting out a lot of incentives to get people to buy. They'd say, we'll sell you this. Back then, $500,000 was a lot. That was when $500,000 meant something, but they would give you all kinds of perks on top of that, upgrades is what they would call them. Mm-hmm. And because this guy was an HP guy and he was in control, my guess is the builder was like, if he talks to his underlings, of which there's 1,000, we might get a lot of business. That's just me making that up. But so this HP guy came in, he wanted to sell his house, and he'd only been there, I don't know, 2-3 years. Apparently HP executives move around a lot. What do I know? But his house, it was the square footage, if you called it, the princess floor plan, for lack of a better term. Then they had these upgrades. It was totally like $120,000, like gold toilet seats and just all this stuff. And I said, those are kind of quality of life things, you can't really, my house is worth $600,000 because it's got gold plated fixtures, you can't do that. And so the reason I'm telling the story is, he considered it I kind of got beat up on that one, but he considered it taking a loss because we listed the way he wanted it. Nobody even talked to me. How come it's priced 100,000 over? Well, come look at it. Nope.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it is $100,000 loss, but but when you pile in upgrades into a new home, you've got to understand that you're buying fancy wheels on a car. It's that $25,000 kitchen or stove you just bought is not going to boil water any faster than the guy next to you.
Yeah, and it was just as nice as the catch on that was people go, isn't it worth more? Well, the only time that happens is when it is great, way better than the neighbors, because all you're trying to comps is comparable. That's what it means. Right. It's almost as good as the other guy.
You're hoping, like if you decked out your kitchen, you're hoping you would get a chef to come in and buy your house, right? Or if you decked out your garage or whatever it is, you're hoping somebody likes that piece, of the house. Like you could get somebody come in, oh, it's a beautiful kitchen, but guess what? We don't cook. It's like we take out every night. So the upgraded kitchen may not, but that's we used to see that. There's I forget which Jones Company in Nashville does a phenomenal job with their customers when they start going through upgrades. So they used to, because they're like, hey, this doesn't matter. Like, your house may not be worth any more because you're doing this. Like, you could have to pay for this out of pocket, and they had to sign it. And
100%.
Yeah.
Now upgrades cost you, well, at least they did. They'd make you pay for it up front.
Yeah.
Because they knew what was coming. So, and in all fairness, I'm going to do this because Ange did ask at the very top of the show.
I don't. All I know is it like still on the House floor? It's part of a bill. Like, wasn't that just proposed?
I think
I
that
didn't.
all I know is that Trump it was in a conversation, and he kind of rambles, but it was being discussed. And the argument was, if capital gains had been, run with inflation or whatever, it wouldn't be 256 and 5, it'd be 5 and 750, whatever,
Yeah.
that is. And so
I know I don't know anything about what they're thinking about with the capital gains. But you got up to 750 right now, right? Isn't that what is it now? 750 or a million? I'm not sure what it is now, but I'm not sure about the capital gains.
256 for single and 500 for a couple?
I'm not even sure.
I'm not sure.
But that's if you don't put it back into a new property, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. If you put it in your bank account, right?
You could always put it in a new property and just go take out a HELOC.
Right. Got it. So there's your non-answer, my friend Ange.
Yeah, it wasn't a very
we don't know. We'll work on that for next week. We'll call Miss Warren. See if
I've heard some good stuff. I've heard the Florida governor talk about people after they pay off their mortgage shouldn't have to pay taxes anymore.
I've heard about that. I
wonder
I
if
have
that
mixed
makes
feelings
its way
about
around.
that.
I thought that was pretty cool. I'd love to see that.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd pay off my house if I didn't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, I wonder. I bet there'd be unintended consequences in there that, if you think it through.
Sure, yeah. County's not going to get $7,000-8,000 a year in taxes.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's going to be overgrown or abandoned, and I don't know. It sounds good on paper. It's like, help the. I don't want to say it. Rodney, what a great day. That you're the bomb. You're the master. You're the king. Thanks for letting me use. Thanks for letting me use that. Thanks for letting me use that. Be right back. That was awesome, and it worked. We're out of here. See you next Tuesday, Rodney.
See you.
See you. Bye. Bye, Ange. Thank you.